Okay, hello everyone. On behalf of the USDA National Institute of Food and Agriculture, I would like to invite you today for our Applied Research and Development Program Technical Assistance webinar. Thank you all for joining. To begin with, I will just explain some of the meeting logistics. If you want to go to the next slide, please. So this webinar will be recorded. Please, during the webinar, make sure that your microphone is muted. There will be time at the end of the webinar for Q&A. If there is any issue with Zoom, the tech support phone number is here, so please call them and they can help you resolve it. Throughout the presentation, as you think of questions or have any comments, please feel free to type them in the chat box. We will be there in the background monitoring it. We are also recording this webinar, and we have over here the URL that tells you where these recordings will be posted. If you go to the next slide, please. Okay, we wanted to begin by saying that in accordance to the federal civil rights law and the U.S. Department of Agriculture civil rights regulations and policies, USDA, its agencies, offices, and employees and institutions participating and administering USDA programs are prohibited from discriminating based on race, color, national origin, religion, sex, gender identity, sexual orientation, disability, age, marital status, family or parental status, income derived from public assistance, political beliefs, or reprisal or retaliation for prior civil rights activity in any program or activity conducted or funded by USDA. Remedies and complaint filing deadlines vary by program. All the details for contact information to request reasonable accommodations, the language services are all provided here. If you have any complaints and would like to lodge them, we are providing the information here for you to be able to do that. With that, we will go into the actual presentation. Terry, could you go to the next slide, please? So I will begin with introducing our crop protection pest management team. I am Rubella Goswami. I am the director for the plant protection division within NIFA. And I have with me the national program leaders and program specialists who are responsible for this program. Vijay Nandula is our national program leader, who is the main lead for this particular program. Along with him, we have Emmanuel Bayamokama, who is also another national program leader, who is associated with the crop protection pest management program. And Terry Allen, or Karina Allen, is our program specialist with the entire portfolio for crop protection and pest management. In today's webinar, we will do a very brief NIFA overview, then we'll talk about the programs, go into the request for applications, specifics of that, the evaluation process, and any other additional information for resources that you may need. Next slide, please. So now into the NIFA overview. For those of you who are new to the agency, NIFA is USDA's primary extramural science funding agency. It is located within USDA's Research, Education, and Economics mission area, and our funding is appropriated by Congress. NIFA's mission is to invest in and advance agricultural research, education, and extension to solve societal challenges. We provide funding and strategic leadership for programs that will ensure the groundbreaking discoveries in agriculture-related sciences that are needed to maintain the productivity that we need to support our agriculture industry. So with that, if you want to go to the next slide, please. This slide just gives you a quick picture of all the various areas that NIFA funds. As you see, there is a very broad range of areas. These are covered by programs which are divided into 4 different institutes, which kind of relate to the large areas that NIFA works with. So for example, the Institute for Food Production and Sustainability is the institute under which the Crop Protection Pest Management Program and a part of which is the Applied Research and Development Program that we're talking about today, is housed. Apart from the Institute of Food Production and Sustainability, we have Institute for Bioenergy, Climate and Environment. We have the Institute for Food Safety and Nutrition, and the Institute for Youth, Family and Community. The Institute for Youth, Family and Community is where you have all the education programs housed that spread across the different areas. So for going into the details of this specific program, I will hand it over to the program team, starting with Vijay, if you want to take it from here.
Thank you, Rubella. Next slide, please. Okay, so the Applied Research and Development Program is a part of the broader Crop Protection and Pest Management Program. Next slide, please.
Vijay, let me pause. I just need to address something. Anne is still requesting to be a captioner. And on my end, I am able to make you a co-host, not a host. I do not see Lori or Eman. May I direct and to you for this captioner functionality, please?
I'm not sure how to do that because I'm not seeing that either.
I'm not seeing that on my end with the set of menu that I have. So far, and I just click and I make you a co-host. And so far, that's the functionality that I see on my end. As the other one that I said close to the caption is literally assigned to type closed caption. That's the only menu I have on my end. If that's it, I can click that right now. Okay, so I see the text a bit. Okay, so you don't have the ability to do that. So, and right now on my menu, one more time, it's literally assigned to type closed caption. I'll click that, and then hopefully that squares it out. DJ, yes, please resume.
Okay, thank you. The Crop Protection and Pest Management purpose and priorities. The purpose is to provide funding for integrated, multifunctional agricultural research, extension, and education activities. The goals and objectives are to address high priority issues related to pests and their management using integrated pest management approaches at various levels. And this program supports projects that will ensure food security and respond effectively to other major societal pest management challenges and comprehensive IPM approaches that are economically viable, ecologically prudent, safe for human health. And it encourages proposals that develop new IPM strategies and tools to mitigate the effect of climate change on existing or new pests, and IPM challenges for emerging issues and existing priority pest concerns that can be addressed more effectively with new and emerging technologies. Next slide, please. So for the program requirements, the Applied Research and Development Program proposal submitted to this program must address the following: stakeholder identified IPM needs, multi-state, US territory and or regional national involvement, multidisciplinary and systems oriented approaches and objectives. Then a systems approach, which describes how the proposal will enhance the development, adoption, and implementation of innovative, ecologically based IPM strategies and systems. Next slide, please. So continuing on with the program requirements, you can see the RFA page numbers on the top of the slide where this content is being referred to. So implementation plan, then a timeline, a coordination, which describes the project team's plans to participate in the appropriate regional, hatch, multi-state IPM program. Then partnerships, then there's a 3-page limit logic model, and the national IPM roadmap. Next slide, please. For eligibility, applicants may only be submitted by colleges and universities as defined in 7 US Code 3103, 1994 institutions, and Hispanic serving agricultural colleges and universities. Award recipients may subcontract to organizations not eligible to apply, provided such organizations are necessary for conducting the proposed research / extension project. No duplicate or multiple submissions. Duplicate or multiple submissions are not allowed. NIFA will disqualify both applications if an applicant submits duplicate or multiple submissions. Among the project and grant types, there are 3 project types: applied research, which is a single function, research-led, and extension-led. For the grant type, there is only the standard grant that can be submitted. Next slide, please. So for the funding levels, for project directors from only one US state or US territory, the maximum is 200,000. Applications with project directors from more than one state or territory collaborating, it is $325,000. A possible exception to maximum budget of 2,000 may exist when multi-state collaboration is not possible. Please contact us for further clarification before you develop your budget. And for funding restrictions, the indirect costs are limited to 30%. Now for cost share or matching, applicants for the ARDP must provide matching contributions at the minimum on a dollar-for-dollar basis for all federal funds awarded by the CPPM program. NIFA may waive the matching funds requirement for a grant if one of the following applies. The results of the project, while of a particular benefit to a specific agricultural commodity, are likely to be applicable to agricultural commodities generally, or the project involves a minor commodity and the project deals with scientifically important research and the grant recipient is unable to satisfy the matching funds requirement. Again, please contact us if you want further clarification to see if your project has questions regarding cost share or matching. Next slide, please. So the next few slides will talk about the details of how the application can be submitted and in what format. The RFA is available online, and we will post that later on in the chat. The application deadline is 5 p.m. Eastern Time, February 13, 2023. So please make a note of that time. And grants must be submitted through www.grants.gov. We cannot accept proposals, for example, that have been submitted to us by email. The program code is ARDP, and that is very important to note. The maximum funding per award, again, is 200,000 or 325,000. The grant duration is 24 to 36 months, and the anticipated number of awards is 15. Next slide, please. The key documents in your application should include project summary or abstract, project narrative, a bibliography, data management plan, and other documents. Please see the RFA for specific requirements, as well as the NIFA grants application guide for more information. Next slide, please. The project narrative should be 18 pages or less, and this will be strictly enforced. The line spacing must be 1.5 spacing, and the Times New Roman font at 11 point size. Now this 18-page limit includes text, figures, and tables. Tables may be single-spaced. Only the first 18 pages will be reviewed if the project narrative runs over the 18-page limit. Next slide, please. So for the data management plan, investigators must provide detailed data management plan limited to 2 pages. And these details should include the expected data type, data format, data storage and preservation, data sharing, protection, and access to the public, and the roles and responsibilities. And there's a link that provides further guidance on the data management plan. Next slide, please. NIFA accepts only electronic submission of applications. Again, there's a link for the grants application guide. And please note that the application documents must be in portable document format or PDF in order to be accepted by NIFA. This includes your project narrative and budget justifications. Grants.gov may allow other formats, but NIFA does not. And please do not use third-party PDF builders. Next slide, please. Okay. From here on, I want to hand it over to my colleague, Dr. Emmanuel Vyamukama, to continue with the presentation.
All right, thank you, Vijay, and good morning, everyone, or good afternoon. So in the next few slides, we'll go through the evaluation process. So the evaluation process is divided into 2 parts. And the first part is where we screen the applications for completeness. We're looking for all the components of the proposal are there. So we have the narrative, we have the budget there, we have data management plan, we have the logic model. So that's the first administrative screening to make sure that the proposal meets all these requirements. The second component of the evaluation process is the scientific merit review. And this is done by the scientific merit panel, as I will explain in the next slide. Next slide, please. So the scientific review process starts by assigning each proposal that passes the administrative review to 3 panelists. Now, these panelists are selected depending on their expertise in the topic proposed. And these 3 reviewers will provide the strengths and weaknesses of each of these proposals. And these strengths and weaknesses are presented to the general panel for discussion. So the panel as a whole reaches a consensus as to where this proposal should be placed. Should it be ranked in the outstanding category, high priority category, medium category, low category, or do not find category? So for the proposals that are ranked from outstanding to medium category are eligible for funding, depending, of course, on how many proposals are in those categories. The proposals that are placed in do not fund and low priority categories, those by law cannot be funded. Next slide, please. So the scientific merit review uses the following criteria to look at these proposals and provide the points under these different sections. So for the applied research single function, as Vijay elaborated, these are proposals that will only do research and won't be doing extension. And so for these proposals, the reviewers will be looking for the technical merit of the research proposed, and the technical merit is worth 45 points. And these are the elements that they will use to evaluate the technical merit of each proposal, as shown in the RFA from page 28. But briefly, they'll look at the complete description and documentation of the project IPM objectives and outcomes. So these have to be clearly described. If model systems are used, then the reviewers will be judging the transferability of knowledge gained from these systems. The reviewers will also be looking at the conceptual soundness of these proposals, especially their hypotheses and research methods. They will look at the description of the suitability, feasibility, originality, and innovation of the proposed research. They will look at the submitted preliminary data and how it demonstrates the feasibility of the proposed research. They will look at the scientific originality of this of the proposed work, as well as the description of the suitability and feasibility of the data management plan, as Vijay explained. And the links for data management plan and logic model will be shared in the chat. Next slide, please. So for the project relevancy, again, for the applied research single function will account for 35 points. And under this, the reviewers will be looking for adequate documentation that the proposal is directed towards specific research program area priorities as identified in the RFA. So you want to make sure that there's clear relevance of the proposal, of the objectives proposed, and also the priorities in the RFA. The reviewers will be looking for the description and documentation of identified stakeholder needs in the proposal. They will look for the suitability and feasibility of the proposed plan and methods for evaluating success of the project activities. They will look for the description of proposals plan for adoption and implementation of the results generated. They will look for clear description of each of the required elements in the logic model and how it's appropriate with the CPPM programmatic logic model. Next slide, please. So again, keeping with the research, so now looking at the research-led and the extension-led proposals, again, so these are integrated as Vijay explained. For the technical merit component, this will be worth 45 points. Again, this is the big part of the proposal evaluation. And under this, the reviewers will be looking for description and documentation of project objectives and outcomes. They will be looking for clear description of suitability, feasibility, and originality of the work proposed. They will look for description of proposed measurable results or outcomes achievable within the time frame proposed. How the proposed research fills the knowledge gaps that were raised by stakeholders. Description of how the proposed extension participants and activities will lead to measurable changes, as well as the description and suitability and feasibility of the data management plan. Next slide, please. So again, under the research-led or extension-led proposals, as far as qualifications go, the reviewers will be looking at the personnel qualifications and experience, as well as the adequacy of the facilities and project management. So this will account for 20 points. And under here, the reviewers will be looking for a description of the key project personnel roles and how these are divided among the project team, the expertise of key personnel necessary to complete the proposed project activities, the institutional capacity and competence to complete the proposed work. So again, some of these will be judged from the facilities documentation that will be submitted with the application. They will be judging the capacity of the support personnel, facilities, and instrumentation to complete the proposed work. They will look at the timeline and the key milestones that will be in the proposal, again, based on the time frame. They'll look at the project management description, including time allotted to various objectives and deliverable products. They also look at the budgets and decide whether sufficient resources will be allocated to both the research and extension activities. Next slide, please. So for the project relevancy under research-led or extension-led proposals, will account for 35 points. So just as with the research-only function. And under here, the reviewers will be looking for adequate documentation that the project is directed towards specific program topic areas as identified in the RFA, especially the integration of both extension and research activities have to be clearly stated for research-led or extension-led proposals. the proposals have to show identified stakeholder needs are being addressed. And then there should be clear statement on how stakeholders will be involved in the implementation of the project, as well as suitable and feasible plan and methods for evaluating the success of the project, as well as the impacts of the project. Next slide, please. So project relevancy will also be, will account for 35 points in the evaluation of each of the proposals under research-led and extension-led functions. Under here, we're looking for the description of the proposals, plan for adoption and implementation, the results generated, the likelihood of sustainability of products and functions from extension activities beyond the life of the project. It should be clear from the proposal that the likelihood that extension outputs or materials produced will include information and recommendations generated from research initiatives. As you know, either research-led or extension-led must have research components. And lastly, we would be looking at the project relevancy. We should be able to judge that the description of each of the required elements in the logic model are appropriate and well supported within the CPPM programmatic logic model chart. Next slide, please. So continuing with project relevancy, one slide forward, Terry. There were a few other points to note on the project relevancy, but keeping with the time, I'll just highlight the, again, that these points are in the RFA, so please refer there to make sure you're following the evaluation criteria. So next slide, please. So we wanted to give you a timeline of from the time you submit your proposal and when an award can be made. This can take anywhere between 3 to 5 months. So we'll keep you updated, but we wanted to give you this time frame. In case you would be wondering what was the proposal. But anytime you can send us a question and inquiries. Next slide, please. So we have a few additional resources, previously funded proposals to give you an idea what other ideas have been funded before under ARDP. Next slide, please. So here we're providing you links to the events calendar and as well as RFAs that are going to be released. So please have these links handy, and better still, you can subscribe to the updates from NIFA. That way you can keep updated on events as well as RFA being released, as well as webinars. Next slide, please. So and use them to prepare your application. Next slide, please. If you with any myself or Terry with any questions with regards to ARDP or any other inquiries you may need as you prepare your applications. Next slide, please. And open up for questions. I believe you can raise your hand, or you can type your question in Q&A or in the chat, and we'll be able to respond to those questions.
Terry, can you stop sharing, please? Okay, we have Shyam.
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Okay, thank you. This is really helpful. My main question is, I'm trying to decide which USDA program to apply to, and I'm trying to decide between applying to the ADRP, so the CPPM program, as well as the Pests and Beneficial Species program, which is part of the AFRI. And so I'm an organic chemist at the University of Kansas, and my proposal is going to be focused on developing new pesticidal and insecticidal compounds based on natural products. So we try to synthesize these compounds. And the idea is if we can develop new synthetic routes, then we can develop analogs, and then hopefully we can work with companies to commercialize these analogs. And so what I'm curious is, does this fit into the CPPM? Because I saw under this single function applied research project, it says long-term fundamental research is not appropriate for funding in this category. So could you please let me know if this fits into CPPM? And then if so, which does it fit into? Is it applied research single function, or is it research-led project? Thank you.
Yeah, sure. Thank you for your question. And I think we have been in one or two discussions before. So to be specific about your research, what I would encourage you to do is maybe set up another meeting with one or more of us, and then we can discuss your proposal more in detail, and then we'll be able to identify suitability of your proposal to CPPM or any of the other programs at NIFA.
Okay, thank you. So I'll send you an email after the webinar, and then we can set up, I guess, a Teams meeting. That'll be really useful, because once I know what program to apply to, then I can start working on the proposal. But what I don't want to do is, spend a month putting together the proposal, and then it's actually for the wrong program. So yeah, another meeting would, I think, really help me. Thank you.
Yes, we'll be glad to help you. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
So we do have a question in the chat, and the question is about can staff such as postdocs holding H1 visa submit as PD or PI? And so Vijay, would you be able to respond to that?
So Lena, if you can send us an email, we'll be happy to reply. So I just want to gather the right information, and then so that I can give you the full answer.
Okay, I don't see any questions in the chat. So anyone can raise the hand, or they can type the question, and then we'll respond to the question.
Lena, you have your hand up.
Yes. Hi, everyone. This question is related now. I am going to submit a revised version, I guess, of a proposal that I submitted this year. So, and I'm the main PI there. Can I be part of another proposal, well, a multi-state proposal as a co-PI or not?
Okay. So to understand your question, you're resubmitting a proposal as a PD, and
Yes.
You're asking if you can be a co-PI on another proposal.
Correct.
Yeah. So the answer is yes, but an applicant cannot be the principal project director on two proposals. But an applicant who is a project director or the principal investigator on a proposal can be a co-PI on a different proposal. Does that answer your question?
Yes, perfectly. Thank you.
We had a question.
Emma and BJ, there is another one by Paolo Maccarini. The question is if, let me see here, there's a further.
Yeah, the question was if an engineer can be a PI. And to answer that question is yes, an engineer or anyone can be a PI, provided their proposal is going to respond to the priorities in the RFA. So there's no restriction on what type of a PI it should be, rather the type of work that they're proposing if it is in line with the priorities set in the RFA.
And if I may also add to that, the PD must be from one of the institutions based on the eligibility criteria that are outlined in the RFA. And if you have any questions on that, please email us. We can reply that way, or we can set up a Teams meeting and we can provide a clarification from that way as well. And Shyam, do you have a question, or was that from a previous?
Oh, sorry, I should have lowered my head. No, I don't have any more questions. Thank you.
Oh, okay.
Sorry, can I ask the question? I have raised the hand.
Yes, please. Yeah.
Oh, hi. So this is Paolo. The same also asked the question about the engineer. The reason why I'm asking is because we developed a technology and we tested already in lab, and we did a small field trial. And we wanted to extend it to actually an extension and make a bigger trial on that to see if it works for replacing methyl bromide with pretty much we are using a very new technology. It's called pulse microwaves. And so I was trying, and it's low cost, and it could be, you know, distributed around the world pretty easily. The thing is though that I am the one who invented this technology, and I'm working with NCSU, another institution, to test in the field. And I wanted to create a proposal for doing this testing in the field, in larger field. But the question was, the two questions I had is, can I be the PD of this just to be able to manage the different collaborators I have on the fields? Or is better to have more the nematode person, that the expert on nematodes and herbicides that are collaborating with me to be the PD. And the second thing is, if I have a multi-state, so we're doing North Carolina and Georgia on different crops and different are the people in the grant considered PI with me, or they are considered co-PI or subcontractor? What is the correct way to handle when you have someone like me, like at Duke University, that does the kind of the PD, and then having multiple extension and fields where they tested it?
That's a good question. You can be a PD as long as you're from one of the eligible institutions. That's the first requirement. And as regarding having other colleagues as a co-PI or a sub-award, that's entirely up to you and your team, how you want to structure your proposal. But again, we would be happy to talk to you about the specifics of your proposal in a Teams meeting or by a telephone call. So how you want to structure your, if you want to be the sole PD or if you want to have co-PIs, but we can have only one PD on a proposal who will be managing all the aspects of the proposal. So we cannot have two PDs. I just want to clarify that.
Perfect. And the last question I had, it was easy grants, because I understood I'm usually used to more the grants coming from the government, from NIH or NSF. So I was wondering, is it going through the easy grant system, the proposal in general, or is a different system where you
we use grants.gov.
Okay, so it's standard. Okay, perfect.
Yeah, so grants.gov is the place where you want to submit your proposal and the documents electronically.
Perfect.
Yeah. There is one question in the chat by Tham Huang. Could research in understanding risk assessment and toxicity of pesticides to non-target organisms such as pollinators to help protect them and increase crop yield be considered for this program? I would say yes. This based on what I have just read, you can submit to this program. But if you want to provide us a little bit more detail of your project, like a abstract or a research synthesis, we will be able to give you a better direction. Because sometimes once we read a more detailed description of your project, we will be able to perhaps identify a more suitable program to which you can apply to. And there is another question that says, does it have any restriction of topics such as fungicide resistance? No, there are no restrictions on the topics, but just as long as your research objectives or your proposed objectives meet the program priorities and address integrated pest management aspects of managing that particular pest that you're researching. And again, Tam says, who should I mail to? We can.
So the RFA has contacts, my contact and Vijay's as well as Terry, but I also put in the chat our emails so you can access them from there.
And there is another question by Anamika Sharma. Thank you for all the information. How can I request for a one-on-one meeting, for a one-to-one meeting with one of you? Like Emmanuel just mentioned, we have our email and phone numbers listed in the probably second but last page of the RFA. So please look that up and send us an email, and we can set up a time that is mutually convenient.
And maybe to add, Vijay, our presentation today, as well as the contact information, is recorded and will be posted on the NIFA YouTube channel. And so you can also find more information there.
So Terry or Emmanuel, do you see any other hand raised?
I just checked. I don't see any more hand raised, but it seems to me, Vijay, sometimes, right, we just need to give more reaction time. I'm sure some are thinking some questions, but just maybe a little bit more time, and let's see.
So I checked all the Q&A, all the questions have been answered, and we'll just wait as they come in, if you have any.
I see no more.
Okay, we will wait just for another minute, and we can stop the recording at that point.
Yeah, we apologize for some technical difficulties we had at the start of the webinar, but hopefully this was useful. And again, if you have any questions anytime, you can reach out to us. And as we mentioned, this recording will be available, so you can always go back and revisit at the NIFA YouTube channel.
Looks like there's one more And about the matching contribution, that's a question that says, is it monetary? Again, that is not necessarily, but if you can share a few more details, we will be able to evaluate your situation and give you an answer.
Yeah, and then there are also some conditions where the matching can be waived, as stated in the proposal. If your project will address or provide solutions that can be widely applied, then you don't have to come up with a matching.
And it is useful to explain in as much detail as possible about your reasoning, why you would think that your project does not need a matching requirement.
Yeah, so if you're in a territory or where finding or applying your work to a wide area is difficult, again, as Vijay said, explain as much as possible why you think you need a waiver for the matching funds.
Okay, just double checking. There are no other new questions or any raised hands. So we can stop the recording here, I think.
Yes.